All right, our last bird, and it's not really a bird of prey. They are a bird that eats meat, but these are called carrion eaters. So these are the birds that are eating the dead animals. So I brought my friend Ichabod the turkey vulture. Often Ichabod doesn't come out and do the Mohican programs because he doesn't like the whole fireplace situation up top. And we find with Ichabod, the best way to use him in programming is always to keep him happy. Because does anybody know what a vulture does when they get upset?
I know.
They puke, yeah. They regurgitate their food. So it's really not a sideshow you guys want to see. So we always find with Ichabod, we always respect what he likes and does not like to do.
There he is. Big bird.
So each one has a bigger bird in it, doesn't it? Ah. There's the alarm call of an American kestrel. Yeah. So that's what they say sounds like killy, killy, killy. He can see Ichabod through the holes in his box. He's like, oh, he's going to eat me. And that's Monty wanting out of his box. So you have all the side shows. Isn't he handsome? Now, I heard someone today, I gave a keeper talk on turkey vultures today. And by the time I was done, the lady said that she was now envious of vultures. Now, that has to be the most compliment we've ever had. But as I went through the talk, all they did, they said, wow, you know, they're kind of cool. I learned about, I think I like them a little bit more. So usually my job is not by the time I'm done talking about vultures that you think they're beautiful. I mean, I'm not going to change that. But I do hope by the time you learn a little bit about vultures, you think they're maybe a little bit cooler than maybe when you were getting started. Because you look at them and you're like, not overly attractive. They eat dead animals. You know, vultures are not my favorite. But you know what? Vultures are amazingly made. First of all, can you guys see something funny about his nose?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's funny about his nose?
It looks like not like an actual nose, it's like dented in. And it looks almost like a claw.
Yeah, it does look like a claw. Very good. What about his nostrils? What about his nostrils?
It looks like the fossil.
Can you see through it?
No.
No, look through his nose. Here. Now can you see through it?
Yep.
Yeah, so if you look at his nostrils, you can see through his nostrils. Birds do not have a highly developed part of their brain for scent. It's usually just eyes and ears. The turkey vulture is an exception. They do have a developed olfactory part of their brain, so they use their nose for locating their prey. So for one, they have very large nostrils. Two, turkey vultures prefer what's on the inside of the animal than what's on the outside of the animal. So when you do that, you could get things stuck up in your nose. So they don't have the cartilage that separates their nose, and so if they would get any debris in their nose, fortunately, they have a very long middle toe that they use inappropriately to pick their nose. So they keep their nose clean. Now, when you find a dead animal, it may not have died from being hit by a car or something like that. It could have a disease. So it could have a virus, could have a bacteria, and most likely if it was a diseased animal, it's going to have bugs. It's going to have parasites on it. So when a vulture gets to his food, it's not as easy as it sounds. The first thing he has to do is make sure whatever parasite is on that animal doesn't crawl onto him. And so if you look at, kind of, you guys might be able to see it up front. See how red his head is?
Yep.
Okay, you notice how his feet are not? They have, what's it look like on his feet? Like some white chalky looking stuff?
Yeah.
Can you see that? Yeah, that white chalky stuff is the uric acid. So when a vulture goes to the bathroom, you know what he does? He tips his tail forward and puts his urine all over his feet. Now you're probably wondering, why is this going to make me like this bird more? I said it's going to make you appreciate them, maybe not think they're more beautiful. But the urine actually acts like a bug repellent and keeps the bugs from crawling up their legs. It also has another benefit. Because they're eating dead animals, there's not going to be a lot of fluid or water in their food, so most birds will pant when they get hot, so they're going to lose some water through this process. To conserve water, instead of panting, vultures will urinate on themselves, and when it evaporates, it cools off their body temperature. Very efficient. You know, it's like geothermal heating, you know, recycling things. It's working pretty well. So that's why they have white on their feet. And also in his nose, when he eats, salt water comes out of his nose and repels the bugs off of his nose. So those are all the ways he protects himself from the bugs. That doesn't help us a whole lot. What helps us is if he finds an animal that has died of a disease and he eats it, the acids in his stomach are so strong he can digest the virus and the bacteria, so he doesn't get sick. And not only does he not get sick, no other animal is going to come along and eat that and get sick and spread the diseases to us, to our livestock, or anything like that. And also, when they pass it back out of their body, the virus and the bacteria are dead. So whether it's anthrax or botulism, West Nile virus, any of those types of things, these guys break the chain of animals spreading disease from one to another. So they're really kind of our health insurance, you might say, out in the wild to keep us from getting sick. But one amazing thing about vultures, and I haven't quite figured out why the medical profession hasn't studied it, they don't get tumors. So there's something about their immune system. Not only do they not get diseases, they also don't get tumors. So you would think there would be somebody out there wanting to study vultures and figure out how that might help humans. They also are extremely intelligent. If you look at them, remember we said the owl's brain is about the size of his eyes? Well, you can tell because he has any feathers on his head. He's got a very large brain. It's about the size of a ping pong ball. So they're very intelligent birds. They're problem solvers. They are also slow to reproduce. Most birds can reproduce when they're 1 year old. And a turkey vulture does not reproduce until they're 11 years old. So so a lot of times we look at them and we think, wow, there's a lot of vultures, but when you realize only a small population of them are reproducing, because they don't reproduce until they're 11, there's not, you have to be really careful that we protect their population, because if we lose the vultures, we could have problems with spreads of disease. Now, there's two types of vultures out there. There's black vultures and there's turkey vultures. Sometimes they're hard to tell apart because turkey vultures have a black head their first year of life. Easiest way to identify them is when a black vulture opens his wing, he has a white patch right here. A turkey vulture, and we'll see if Ichabod will show you, they're light on the back side of both sides of their wings. So we'll see. Can we show them their wings? Or is it too late at night for showing wings? Ichabod. No? What do you think? One more try. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. We can do it. There you go.
Oh, that's a big.
Yeah. All right. So see how his wings are kind of two-toned? That's one of the easiest ways to identify these guys in flight. You can tell them from an eagle also because their primaries kind of split off like fingers. So when they're flying, their wingspan's the same as eagles. Eagles' heads are larger, and the vulture has those fingers that kind of flip off to the side. Also, their iridescent feathers, their feathers heat up in the sun, and that helps also to repel bugs off of them because their feathers get so hot, if there's any parasites, they'll come to the surface. And they very meticulously take their beak and keep all the bugs out. So of all the birds that come to us at the bird sanctuary, these guys are always the cleanest, which, in our mind, we would think would be the opposite. But these are the least likely ones to come with any type of parasites on them because they just spend a lot of time keeping themselves very, very clean. Ichabod is with us because somebody found him as an egg and thought it'd be fun to hatch him. This is illegal, but the whole story is kind of heartwarming in its own right. So this older gentleman and his nephew were hiking through the woods. They found a vulture nest, and he had a quail farm. And he thought, oh, this will be fun. Let's hatch this vulture egg. So they took the egg, they hatched it. None of the quail hatched that year, only the vulture egg. And the family's name actually was Mr. Smith. I'm not hiding his identity. And they hatched the egg, and Mr. Smith was raising his vulture, and he called him Dead Dog Diner, was the name that Ichabod had when he was growing up. And their plan was, when Ichabod grew up, that they were going to or Dead Dog Diner, when he grew up, they were going to let him go. Well, these birds, because they're highly intelligent, don't come into this world knowing who they are. They learn their identity by what raises them. We find the same thing with hawks and owls. We have to be really careful that the birds don't see us during being raised up. So this family raised Ichabod. We found out about him and got a hold of him and said, you're really not allowed to have that bird. He's protected by federal law. And they're like, that's okay, we're going to let him go. And I said, you can't let him go. He doesn't know he's a vulture. He's not going to survive, and he's just going to wreak havoc. So I said, you really probably should bring him into the bird sanctuary. So they said they would, and they said, Dad's really attached to this vulture. And I said, okay, well, as soon as you could bring him in, that'd be great. I don't think we saw Dead Dog Diner for about another month. And by the time they got here, he had a whole photo album of the vulture. They said he has more kids with his vulture than he does his kids. So Ichabod came to us when he was between 3 to 4 months old. He's now 19 or 20. He's been with us a long time. What was interesting was throughout the years, the Smith family would come visit Ichabod, and he always knew Mr. Smith. I mean, he still, sometimes if somebody comes and resembles him, Ichabod will kind of look. And the daughter called me. Her father was in hospice care, and he said, we just want to let you know that Dad, is in hospice care. And I was out taking a walk, and Gail, we came across an injured owl. Somehow our paths keep crossing, so we went out, rescued the owl, and Mr. Smith passed away shortly after that. his last request was on his gravestone. He wanted a picture of Ichabod. So if you go through the town of Sullivan, it is worth going through the cemetery. Take the one avenue to the left in the cemetery. There's a big black stone, and there's a picture of Mr. Smith and Ichabod. So he's probably the only turkey vulture that has his own tombstone already. But anytime you kind of get a chance to know these birds up close, you do find they've got kind of a captivating personality. You can look at them up close. I'm not going to try to do the photo ops. It's just a little too tough with this big guy. Do you guys have any questions about the sanctuary or about vultures?
How long do they live?
In the wild, they live to be about 40 to 50 years old. They're very long lived. Come on, we can do it. There you go. Yeah. All right. So see how his wings are kind of two-toned? That's one of the easiest ways to identify these guys in flight. You can tell them from an eagle also because their primaries kind of split off like fingers. So when they're flying, their wingspan's the same as eagles. Eagles' heads are larger, and the vulture has those fingers that kind of flip off to the side. And in fact, his bones are hollow. He's got pneumatic bones. You know, all birds have pneumatic bones, but his humeral bone is actually attached to his air sacs. So, I mean, his bones are even lighter than like a hawk or an eagle. Because he makes me look really strong, but he only weighs 3 pounds. He's just very, very light. Any other questions? Yes?
What's the biggest animal he can eat?
An elephant, because you don't have to kill it. Yeah. So anything dead, a whale, yeah, if it's beached, he's not all picky. He'll eat a shrew all the way up to a whale.
Like an ant, if it's dead.
If it's dead, yeah. He likes mealworms. Yeah. He just doesn't like anything that moves.
I know something that actually can have a claw too.
What?
A claw.
Yeah. You guys have any other questions? Yes.
How fast does he fly?
Does the turkey vulture go? He glides, so he's going to probably be even slower than our owl. He's going to go maybe 10 miles per hour, but he's not worried about getting anywhere fast because dead animals don't run very fast. So his whole thing is to be able to, how long can he stay airborne without exerting any effort? So they ride the thermals, they wait for the heat of the rise of the day, and then when he puts his wings out, I mean, do you guys all remember gym class when the gym teacher would make you do this and your shoulders would burn? Well, we're using our muscles through here and we're using our pectoral to do it. Vultures have a ligament that runs along their wing, makes them more like an umbrella, so it's kind of like, and they hold up and they don't have to use their muscle mass as much to keep their wings out. So it takes very little effort for them to soar for hours before they ever find their food.
So since they glide and they're looking for something dead, like, are they picking that up by scent?
They are. When they're up there, they're typically picking up by scent, and that's why the turkey vulture is one of the few vultures that can find things in wooded areas because they're going for smell. The black vulture will follow the turkey vulture into a wooded area because they locate their food by sight. And when they're flying, if you see them up there just circling, people always say, I think they found something dead. Usually at that point they're not. If they're just up there circling, they're moving from one area to another. It's not till they pull their wings in what's called a dihedral and start rocking their way down out of the air drafts, and they'll get close to the ground, and then once they're on the ground, they spend a lot of time walking because scent blows until they find it. So it's kind of this whole narrowing down process. But they do first find it by sense of smell, and you think it doesn't seem too hard because dead animals have an odor. The interesting thing is their nose is so sensitive, they can smell an animal that's only been dead for a couple hours, which you and I wouldn't be able to do that. But whatever chemicals are given off when the animal dies, they're able to pick that up.
My mom was definitely
Yes.
It seems like they'd be more competitive. I'm surprised when you see one, you see so many. How does that
Well, if you get a chance to watch them at a feeding site, they're pretty fascinating to watch. There is a pecking order at the site. Sometimes you'll get there, and actually in the middle of is a red-tailed hawk who's getting to eat first, and all the vultures are waiting on. It's like watching a lion feed and the vultures. And then watch when they start to feed. If there's any juveniles, which are ones with dark heads, they'll be on the outside, and they're going to have to wait. The adults will feed first. And if one comes up and approaches, the more dominant birds are going to stand up real tall and stretch their neck out about 3 or 4 inches. Ichabod right now is doing a very submissive pose. His head's like this. And so, when I first was working with him and he was going through his adolescent years, he spent a lot of times trying to stand up straight, and I'd be like, nobody. So I always make sure when I hold him, I'm almost a head above him. So I'm automatically, through his language, telling him that I'm actually the dominant vulture for him. And you can watch at feeding sites. You can watch the more dominant ones eat first, and then when they're done, the other ones get to come in. So then at some point, you'll see the dominant ones are on the outskirts, and their wings are out, because they're all done eating. They're just sunning, and they're just digesting their food, and then the more submissive birds get a chance to eat. So there is a pecking order. It's just not, you're not going to see any aerial displays with these guys. They're not that acrobatic. They're going to do it all on ground through posturing.
How do the females figure in? Are the females smaller?
Females are larger.
Are they
They
larger?
get,
Okay,
yeah,
like a
yeah,
mouse.
yeah. They're definitely dominant when it comes to the feeding sites. Yeah, I like birds of prey because I'm small. Kind of like the idea that they're bigger than their mates, but I'll be 6 foot tall my next time. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.